Damon stared at the blinking cursor on his laptop screen, heart thumping so hard he was certain someone in the next room might hear it. He had typed out his question in one of his favorite online forums, known for its warm community and honest advice. But every time he glanced over his words, looking for my first pair of heels, size 13 women's, comfortable block or kitten heel under $75. Any recommendations? He felt a wave of apprehension wash over him. He had never done anything quite like this before. He had never admitted in writing that he was interested in wearing heels. The clock on his desk read midnight. He had come home from his job earlier in the evening and spent the last few hours browsing various websites, flipping through countless images of shoes and carefully noting their prices. Some looked incredibly flashy and tall, the type he imagined might be worn on big stages. That wasn't what he wanted. His fingers hovered over the post button. The website's background glowed softly, the forum's layout plain but comforting in its familiarity. This was the place where so many people shared their stories, offered tips, or just found a moment of friendly solidarity. He swallowed the lump in his throat, clicked submit, and then sat back in his chair, adrenaline thrumming through his veins. Now he had to wait. If someone responded, great. If not, well, at least he had tried. Maybe he could figure out the rest on his own. After all, how complicated could buying heels be? Sooner than he expected, a notification pinged on the screen. A reply from a user called Fashion Forward. He clicked on it with trembling excitement. Hey Damon, I totally get what you're feeling right now. I remember the jitters of buying my first pair of heels, worried about how they'd fit and whether I could walk in them. Block or kitten heels are a great start. They're easier to balance on and kinder on the arches. As for brands, some folks find success with online stores like Zappos or Torrid because they carry extended sizes. Price-wise, check out lower-heeled pumps from Lifestride or Naturalizer. They're known for comfort and often come in bigger sizes. Don't stress about them being too flashy. Start simple. Best of luck. Damon exhaled as though he had been holding his breath for hours. Already his tension began to ease. It felt reassuring that someone out there understood exactly what he was going through, or, at the very least, had once been in the same position. Before he could form a response, a handful of new replies popped up. Check out Payless if you can find it in your area. They sometimes carry size 13 in women's, wrote a user named Lily S. Seconding block heels. I'm more stable in them than in stilettos. Don't worry about anything else for now. Just get comfortable, added Jess T. Damon felt a sense of relief wash over him. He leaned back in his chair, reading reply after reply. He wasn't the only one who had been in these shoes, figuratively at least, and that thought alone gave him courage. He typed quick responses to thank them, and he could almost feel the encouraging warmth on the other side of the screen. The next day, he found himself on a break at work, sipping a lukewarm coffee in the small kitchenette. He reread the forum thread on his phone and jotted down a few brand names: Lifestride, Torrid, Naturalizer, and a few others like Clark's. One co-worker, Melody, stepped into the kitchenette to fill up her water bottle. "You look deep in thought," she said, glancing at the intensity on his face. He jolted a bit and reflexively flipped his phone face down on the counter. "Oh yeah, just thinking about an errand I have to run later." Melody arched an eyebrow. "Everything all right?" He nodded too quickly. "Yep, all good." She smiled, though she seemed a bit curious. He had known Melody for a couple of years. She was only a few years older than him, but somehow always seemed more self-assured. They'd gotten along well enough that she sometimes came by his desk to chat, and he knew she had a bold sense of style. Her nails were a brilliant teal today, matching the highlights in her jet black hair. "Damon, I know that look," she teased, capping her water bottle. "Whatever you're planning, Good luck." He felt a stir of nerves in his stomach, hoping she wouldn't press further. For now, he forced a casual grin. "Thanks," he said, leaving the kitchenette in a hurry. The idea of confiding in a coworker, even a friendly one like Melody, seemed too daunting. That evening, Damon trudged up the 2 flights of stairs leading to his small apartment. He worked in a bustling city that was only just beginning to see a renaissance of more open-minded fashion. As he unlocked his door, he thought about the advice from the forum. Maybe a quick check online would help him find the perfect pair. He tossed his keys on the kitchen counter and collapsed onto the couch with his laptop balanced on his knees. Clicking through website after website, he found it was harder to locate size 13 women's shoes than he'd expected. Some brands stopped at size 11 or 12. A few carried 13, but the styles were either outlandish or painfully expensive. He scrolled by towering platform pumps that made him cringe with fear. He spotted glittery stilettos with price tags far above $75. Finally, after half an hour of searching, he stumbled across a pair on sale. Black pumps with a modest block heel about 2 inches. They looked elegant, with minimal ornamentation. The listing boasted a reputation for comfort. The site's price displayed a modest $68, a discount from $89. He stared at them. Were these the ones? His heart thumped. He zoomed in on the pictures, carefully examining every angle. The brand was known for reliable arch support, and according to reviews, the shoes were perfect for people on their feet for extended periods. The only hitch was to confirm they actually had his size in stock. He clicked on the size menu. A moment later, the screen indicated that size 13 was available. A surge of excitement shot through him. But then the jitters set in. Could he really do this? Could he genuinely buy them and have them delivered to his apartment? What if the mail arrived while his roommate Owen was home? Owen was a friend from his college days, but they weren't exactly the kind of friends who shared personal secrets, especially not about footwear preferences that diverged from the norm. Damon drummed his fingers on the trackpad, hesitation flickering in his eyes. He momentarily thought about shipping them to a Dropbox or a friend. But that presented its own issues. Who did he trust enough to intercept the package? People in his life knew him as easygoing, somewhat quiet, with interests like sports and strategy games. They didn't suspect he had this other side that manifested in subtle details, like the clothes he longed to try on in private. With another deep breath, he decided he wanted the shoes enough to take the risk. He typed in his billing information, making sure to select a discreet shipping label. He triple-checked the shipping details. He checked out. When the confirmation page appeared, telling him his order would arrive in 3 to 5 business days, his heart fluttered between excitement and nerves. He closed his laptop carefully, as though he had just locked away a secret. The next few days, he thought, would be an exercise in patience. "That's all for today," announced Damon's boss, arms folded. The office had a hush about it, and only a handful of employees were still typing. It was a Wednesday evening, just shy of 6 p.m., and Damon had spent the last hours finalizing a project that nearly wore him out. He glanced at the clock, then packed up his desk with robotic efficiency, checking his phone as he prepared to leave. The shipping confirmation email was there, informing him his package had arrived that morning and was waiting in the apartment building's mailroom. A jolt of anxious excitement shot through him, swirling in his chest. He pictured the plain shipping box lying on a shelf, with a label bearing his name. If Owen got off work earlier, would he have picked it up for him, or was it still there? He took the city bus back home, foot tapping impatiently on the floor. With every stop, the bus lurched, the crowd shifted, and Damon found his gaze drifting to the shoes of people around him. There was a woman in pointed flats who was reading a magazine. A man stood near the door with scuffed boots. Another woman next to him wore a pair of high-heeled ankle boots, 3 or 4 inches, Damon estimated. She tapped her foot in time to a beat only she could hear. He caught himself studying her balance. He saw how she leaned slightly on the overhead rail. Was it uncomfortable for her? Or had she done this enough times that it was second nature? Damon's face warmed in a silent wave of realization. His life might look very different from here on out. Reaching his stop, he hopped off the bus and moved briskly along the sidewalk, weaving between the after-work crowd. The city hummed with energy. Cars honked in the distance, pedestrians crossed streets in clusters, and neon signs flickered to life against the dusky sky. Turning the corner onto his street, Damon could almost feel his pulse in his throat. At the lobby of his apartment building, he typed in his code for the mailroom. A small beep signaled the door unlocking. Inside, rows of metal boxes lined one wall. A few shelves on the opposite side held larger packages. The overhead fluorescent light gave the room a sterile glow. He scanned the boxes, looking for his name. Then he saw it, a plain cardboard package about the size of a shoebox. Gently, he picked it up, tucked it under his arm, and hurried to the stairs. For a moment, the weight of it felt symbolic, like holding a new sense of possibility. He climbed the 2 flights quickly, listening carefully in the hallway for any voices or signs that Owen was home. Unlocking his door, he peeked inside. The apartment was silent, except for the quiet hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Owen's shoes weren't by the door. Probably out for the evening, Damon guessed with a flash of relief. He locked the door behind him, set his bag aside, and placed the package on the living room coffee table. Taking a deep breath, he found a pair of scissors in the kitchen drawer. It felt momentous, slicing through the tape. He unfolded the flaps carefully and saw the shoes inside, nestled in paper. They looked just as they did in the pictures, black block heel pumps, not overly high, with a sturdy sole and a sleek shape. He lifted one out, turning it slowly in his hands. "This is it," he whispered, marveling at how something so simple could hold so much meaning. His bedroom carpet was unvacuumed and speckled with bits of lint, but he didn't care. He brought the box into his room and shut the door gently. Sitting on the edge of his bed, he pulled off his socks. His toes felt cold against the air. Then, with trembling excitement, he slipped his feet into the heels, one by one. For a moment, everything felt uncertain. His balance, his posture, the way the shoe fit around the edges of his foot. Yet after he wiggled his toes, something about it felt unexpectedly pleasant. Yes, the shoes were snug, but not painfully so. He flexed his foot and stood slowly, testing his balance like a toddler learning to walk. The reflection in his bedroom mirror nearly caused his heart to skip. He saw a somewhat tall man with short dark hair, wearing a semi-wrinkled button-down and black slacks, now perched on 2-inch block heels. It was a jarring image, but not unwelcome. Carefully, he took a few steps. He wobbled once, caught himself by grabbing the dresser, then tried again with a straighter spine, shifting his weight step by step. Each movement felt strange, but a smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. This was doable. The block heels gave him enough stability to feel safe, and the shoes themselves didn't pinch nearly as much as he had feared. He spent the next 10 minutes walking around his room, turning, pivoting, practicing short strides. He'd read tips on the forum. Keep your chin up, place your heel down first, then the toe, and take smaller steps. It wasn't a performance for anyone else. It was for him, a moment to feel comfortable in these new steps. Eventually, he let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. The shoes were everything he wanted, understated, comfortable, and not so tall that he felt dangerously off balance. His phone buzzed on the bed, startling him. He gingerly hurried over in his new footwear, trying not to stumble. A text from Owen. "Going to be home late, out with friends. You want anything from the store before I come back?" Damon typed back, "No thanks, I'm good." He felt an immediate sense of relief that he had the rest of the evening to himself. For the next few hours, he wore the heels around the apartment, pacing lightly across the living room, opening the fridge to rummage for snacks, and even leaning over the kitchen sink to wash a few dishes. Every moment thrilled him. Yes, there was still that little voice of nervousness in the back of his mind, but it was overshadowed by how natural it felt to move in them, even in these early stages. A few days passed. Damon found a routine. After Owen left for work each morning, he would slip on the heels for about half an hour, practicing his walk and posture. Late in the evenings, he wore them again, pacing from bedroom to living room, occasionally glancing at his reflection in the hallway mirror. He liked the confident posture it gave him. It still required practice, but he improved daily. During one of these practice sessions, a knock sounded at the front door, and he nearly jumped. He had to shuffle back to his room as fast as he could, slip off the shoes, and toss them onto the bed. His heart raced as he answered the door barefoot, greeting the mail carrier who offered him some letters that had been accidentally delivered to the wrong unit. He thanked them hastily, waiting until the door was shut to breathe in relief. This was the type of scenario that put him on edge, but he reminded himself that caution was part of the process. That night, he decided to check back on the forum. He wrote a post detailing his purchase, thanking the community for their guidance, and explaining how they fit like a dream. Responses flooded in. "Oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you," wrote Jess T. "Glad you found a pair that works for you. Block heels are a lifesaver," echoed another user. One user, Chase Your Style, suggested, "Next step is to find some outfits that match them. Nothing too fancy, but something to get a feel for your style." Damon read that post a few times, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. True, he had never considered pairing them with anything but the typical clothes he wore at home, t-shirts and sweatpants or slacks. He wasn't entirely sure where to start, but the idea planted itself in his mind. The following week was when everything got just a bit more complex. Melody, from his office, approached him while he refilled his coffee mug. She leaned against the counter, stirring sugar into her own mug. "Hey, Damon, I've got a question. This might sound random," she began, smiling in a way that signaled curiosity. "You like that online forum about fashion advice, right? I might be mixing you up with someone else. I'm just trying to recall who mentioned it." He stiffened. Did she somehow catch wind of his secret? I read some forums, yeah," he managed, keeping his tone neutral. She nodded. "I was thinking of updating my look, and I'm not sure where to get honest opinions. I know some friends might sugarcoat. I remember you once saying there was an online community that gave real feedback, or maybe it was someone else." She laughed. "Anyway, do you know any places like that?" Damon forced a short laugh. "Oh, right, sure. There are some good websites out there. You can, Google them, or check sub-communities specifically for style questions." Melody shrugged playfully. "All right, thanks. Might do that." She added a second packet of sugar, gave him a quick wave, and left the kitchenette. He stared at his coffee, swirling it aimlessly. It was possible she really was just looking for fashion advice. But a tiny voice in the back of his mind worried that maybe she suspected more. Nonetheless, he tried to brush it off and get on with the day's tasks. That weekend, Damon sat in front of his computer, searching for clothes that might go well with his new footwear. He found an online store that catered to tall women, offering dresses, skirts, and jeans in lengths that might actually accommodate his height. He toggled through images of simple black skirts, a few dresses, and wide-legged trousers. Though he had never worn such items, the forum's suggestions lingered in his mind. Maybe the next step was exploring a different wardrobe. But how would that work in a shared apartment? Would Owen eventually notice something in the laundry hamper or hanging in the closet? The thought made Damon's palms sweaty. A ding on his phone pulled him from his worries. It was a message from his friend Sabrina, someone he had known since high school. They had reconnected after college, and though they met up only occasionally, she'd always struck him as open-minded and easy to talk to. The text read, "Going thrift shopping. Wanna come?" He hesitated. Thrift shopping? That was a perfect place to find items cheaply, maybe even items that could pair with his new shoes. But did he dare? He typed back, "Sure, why not?" Sabrina picked him up in her dusty sedan an hour later. She was bubbly as ever, wearing an oversized flannel shirt over a tank top, her curly hair tied in a loose bun. "Hey, stranger," she greeted him. "Long time no see." "Hey," Damon said, sliding into the passenger seat. "So, what are you hoping to find?" Sabrina pulled away from the curb. "I need a new coat for the fall, maybe a few quirky t-shirts. You?" He forced a casual shrug. "Oh, just browsing, seeing if anything catches my eye." She turned on some music, a pop station that Damon pretended not to mind, and they chatted about the usual topics: work, old classmates, and the city's never-ending construction. Damon tried to focus on the conversation, but part of him kept imagining possible items he might find in the store. They arrived at a thrift shop on the far side of town, a sprawling warehouse-like building with racks upon racks of clothing, shoes, accessories, even furniture in the back. The buzz of fluorescent lights overhead and the faint hum of the ventilation system accompanied the faint music playing through tinny ceiling speakers. Splitting up, they each went to their preferred sections. Sabrina disappeared among the winter coats, while Damon drifted toward the men's clothes first, half out of habit. He spent a few minutes half-heartedly flipping through some button-ups, but it didn't hold his interest. Eventually, the pull toward the women's section grew too strong to ignore. He approached a rack of dresses. It felt risky, standing among them, especially because Sabrina might pass by. Then again, they were in a thrift store. It was a place people browsed all sorts of items. The swirling colors and textures intrigued him. Many dresses were too small, but some might fit, especially those in larger sizes. He took a step closer and skimmed through. Nothing jumped out at him immediately, but his heart thumped in the same pattern of excitement and nerves. Then his gaze landed on a simple black A-line skirt. It looked knee-length with an elastic waistband. "Might be comfortable," he whispered, checking the tag. He couldn't tell if it would be precisely his size, but it had some stretch. He glanced around to see if anyone was looking. A few older shoppers meandered nearby, paying him no mind. He slid the skirt off the rack and draped it over his arm. Before he could talk himself out of it, he moved toward the shoes, which were arranged in a haphazard display. Sizes were sometimes mismatched. He took a cursory glance. A few pairs of boots caught his eye, but none in a size that would fit him. His new black block heels were enough for now, he decided. Clothing was the next step. He found a quiet corner of the store near the dressing rooms. Was he brave enough to try it on here? The idea made him sweat, but the dressing rooms were individual stalls with locked doors. He took a deep breath and marched over, gripping the skirt like a secret. He nodded briefly at the employee stationed there, who didn't even glance at his items, just handed him a plastic number. He slipped into the small dressing room. The overhead light was slightly harsh, showing every detail in the mirror. He hung the skirt on the hook, took off his pants, and stepped into the garment. It slid up over his hips and rested around his waist. He didn't have the heels with him, of course, but seeing himself in the skirt was enough to spark a flurry of emotions. It looked a bit plain, just black, with no adornment. But that was exactly what he wanted. Something understated, just like his shoes. He twisted side to side, trying to imagine how the outfit would look once he paired it with the heels, or maybe with a simple blouse or t-shirt. It was a step in a new direction. He nodded to himself, pleased that it at least fit somewhat decently. Emerging from the dressing room, he found Sabrina in the aisle with the coats, balancing several items draped over her arm. She spotted him and raised an eyebrow at the black fabric in his grasp. "What's that?" she asked casually. A flush crept up his neck. He tried to think quickly. "Just picking up something for a friend," he lied, giving a little shrug. "She was looking for a black skirt. Figured I'd see if there was something suitable." Sabrina tilted her head. "Oh, nice. That's kind of you." He felt a wave of guilt at the lie, but for the moment it seemed safer than explaining everything right there. She didn't question him further, though an inquisitive gleam in her eye lingered. They paid for their items at the register, stuffed them into reusable tote bags, and headed back to the car. Throughout the ride home, Sabrina chatted about her upcoming travel plans, giving Damon the perfect excuse not to say much about his purchase. When he got home, he found the apartment empty again. Owen must have gone out, perhaps staying with his girlfriend or a group of friends. Damon retreated to his bedroom, closed the door, and pulled out the new skirt. He laid it on the bed and retrieved his heels from their hiding place in the back of his closet. A soft exhale escaped his lips as he slipped on the skirt and stepped into the heels. He stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the waistband. The reflection revealed a tall figure with a modest black skirt and matching low heels. He noticed that, while the skirt fit around his waist, it was a tad short when he sat down. Still, it looked neat, a potential outfit to wear someday, somewhere, though he wasn't sure where. The moment felt surreal, but there was a tinge of contentment in it. It wasn't flashy or theatrical. It was simply a personal choice that felt oddly natural in its own way. Yet he had no intention of rushing out in public like this. He was still new to the entire experience, still discovering how these garments fit into his life, physically and emotionally. Over the next few weeks, he found himself in a comfortable pattern. Whenever he had a free evening alone, he would slip into the skirt and heels, testing out different tops, mostly his regular t-shirts or button-downs, though he recognized they weren't really styled to go with the skirt. Nevertheless, it offered him a growing sense of familiarity and practice. He became more confident walking in his heels, handling small chores around the apartment without stumbling. Online, the forum served as a supportive corner. He posted pictures of his new shoes, only from the ankle down. He wasn't ready to show his face. The supportive comments poured in, offering suggestions on how to pair them with different outfits or how to care for them so they lasted a long time. It was in those comments that he felt a sense of camaraderie, despite not meeting any of them in person. One Sunday afternoon, while Damon was in his room practicing his walk, he heard the front door open and Owen's voice calling out, "Damon, you here?" Damon froze. Owen was back earlier than expected. Quickly, he took off the heels, yanked off the skirt, and flung them under his bed, throwing on the sweatpants he had on earlier. He tried to steady his breathing. Then he opened his bedroom door, stepping into the hallway. "Hey," he greeted, feigning calm. "What's up?" Owen was rummaging in the kitchen for a snack. "You want to order pizza tonight?" he asked. "I'm starving." Damon nodded. "Sure, that sounds fine." He prayed that Owen wouldn't stroll into his room and notice anything unusual. Owen had never been particularly nosy, but they had known each other long enough that small changes might be noticed eventually. Damon wondered if the faint clack of heels on the floor could have carried through the walls. His heart pounded at the possibility. But if Owen suspected anything, he gave no sign. That night, after they finished their pizza, Owen settled onto the couch to watch television. Damon joined him, though his mind was far from the show. He kept glancing at the coffee table, remembering the box that once held his block-heeled shoes. He wanted to slip away to his room and continue practicing, but he knew it would be too obvious. So he stayed, trying to appear relaxed. Long day? Owen asked, stretching his arms behind his head. Yeah, kind of. Work has been busy, Damon replied. No kidding. My schedule's been wild too, Owen said with a sigh. I was thinking of maybe moving to a cheaper place in a couple months, get a little more space somewhere outside the city center. It'd be a commute, though. Damon felt a pang of concern. If Owen moved out, that meant Damon either had to find a new roommate or take on the full rent. Really? He asked, trying to hide the worry in his voice. Would that be soon? Owen shrugged. I'm not sure. I like living here. It's just we're both at that point where we might want our own places eventually. But anyway, it's not set in stone. Just thinking out loud. Damon nodded slowly. The conversation drifted to other topics, but his thoughts lingered on what life might be like if he had the apartment to himself. One part of him worried about affording the rent alone. Another part of him realized it would mean more freedom, the ability to wear his new clothes whenever he pleased without sneaking around or hiding. A week later, Damon was about to log off from work when his phone buzzed. It was Sabrina again. Dinner with me and Melody from your office. She's a friend of mine too. We're meeting at that new burger place around 7. You in? Damon blinked at the mention of Melody. Apparently, Sabrina knew her socially. He weighed his options. On one hand, going out to dinner sounded fun. On the other, he was always on guard around Melody, worried she might piece together clues about his personal interests. He decided to push aside his anxiety. It was just dinner. So he agreed and took a bus to the restaurant that evening. He found Sabrina seated in a corner booth, chatting animatedly with Melody. They waved him over. Melody wore a stylish blouse with fitted jeans and ankle boots. Nothing extravagant, but always put together with a confident flair. Sabrina, in contrast, had on her signature casual layers. Glad you made it, Sabrina exclaimed. Melody was telling me about some new clothing line she's into. Melody laughed. I'm not exactly brand loyal, but yeah, I like their stuff. Damon, how's it going? He took a seat and tried to steady himself. Can't complain. How do you two know each other? Sabrina sipped her soda. We met at a local charity event months ago. Then we realized we had mutual friends. Small world, right? As they chatted, Damon felt a bit of tension loosening. He was worried Melody might confront him about that day in the office or something else. But the dinner proceeded smoothly. They ate burgers, fries, drank milkshakes, and talked about work, weekend plans, and city life. At one point, Melody glanced at him with a curious spark in her eye. Damon, I have a random question. I remember you looked deep in thought a while back. You said you had an errand to run. This might sound silly, but are you by any chance into fashion more than you let on? Damon's chest tightened. What makes you think that? He asked, trying to keep his voice light. I just sense you have a particular taste, and you get quiet whenever the subject comes up, Melody said. But hey, if you're not comfortable talking about it, that's okay. Sabrina raised an eyebrow. I didn't know you were into style. You never struck me as the type. He tried to take the comment in stride. I wouldn't say I'm some style guru. I guess I've been exploring different things. Hard to explain. Melody shrugged, swirling a fry in ketchup. No worries. I'm just curious because I consider myself a bit of a style enthusiast. I pay attention to details, that's all. They let the topic slide, shifting back to other banter about the food and weekend activities. But Damon felt that subtle weight on his shoulders again, sensing that Melody was more perceptive than he'd realized. The rest of dinner passed in a mix of jokes and friendly chatter. By the time he made it home, he was physically tired but mentally wound up, replaying the conversation in his head. Days turned into weeks, and Damon's comfort walking in heels improved significantly. He occasionally ventured to the kitchen even when Owen was home, wearing the shoes for brief moments, always ready to dash back to his room if he heard footsteps. It was a balancing act, literally and figuratively. One afternoon, while relaxing in his room, Damon was browsing an online shoe sale. Perhaps, he thought, it would be nice to have a second pair, maybe a kitten heel for variety. He found a pair that looked promising, navy blue, a tiny little heel, and well under $75. Hesitant, he placed them in the cart, typed in his card details, and stared at the checkout screen. His excitement warred with a sense of guilt for spending more money, but with a deep breath, he hit purchase. The confirmation page popped up. He closed the laptop and leaned back in his chair. This was becoming more than a one-time experiment. He was officially building a small collection. It dawned on him that he might eventually need to reorganize his closet or find a locked trunk if he wanted to store these items discreetly. The risk of discovery was real, yet the sense of relief he got from wearing these clothes and shoes felt worth the precaution. Later that night, his phone pinged with a text from Melody. "Hey, you free for coffee tomorrow? I'd love your perspective on something." Damon's stomach tightened. He typed back, "Sure, what's up?" She replied, "Let's chat in person. See you at the cafe near work at noon." Curiosity and worry battled in Damon's mind. He barely slept that night, turning the possibilities over and over. What did she want to talk about? The next day, he found Melody at the small cafe. It was crowded with office workers grabbing lunches and lattes. Melody waved him over from a table in the corner. She had a cappuccino in front of her, and an empty coffee cup waited on the other side. "Hey," Damon greeted, taking a seat. He took a sip of the coffee she'd ordered, grateful for the warmth. "So, what's on your mind?" Melody leaned forward. "I hope I'm not overstepping here, Damon. Well, Sabrina mentioned you bought a skirt when you two went thrifting, said you told her it was for a friend, but she had this feeling that might not be the entire truth." Damon's heart rate soared. He tried to keep a calm expression. "Oh," he said softly. "She told you that?" Melody nodded. "She was curious, thought maybe you needed style advice for a costume or something. But the way she explained it, I got the sense there might be more to it. And Damon, I want to say up front, I don't judge. I really don't. I just want to make sure you're okay. Sometimes it helps to talk about it." He drew in a shaky breath. The hum of voices around them made it feel oddly private, even though the cafe was bustling. Maybe I'm exploring some fashion choices that aren't typical for guys," he said at last, carefully picking his words. "It's not something I talk about." A gentle smile spread across Melody's face. "I see. And you don't have to explain further if you don't want to. But if you need a friend who gets it, I'm here. No judgment at all. And hey, I know Sabrina feels the same. She's open-minded." Relief and anxiety tangled inside him. He stared at the steam rising from his coffee. "I appreciate that," he mumbled, feeling his cheeks burn. "It's complicated. I've been buying a few things, shoes, clothes, that sort of thing, but I haven't told anyone." Melody reached across the table, laying a hand gently on his forearm. "You just did," she said softly. "And that's fine. We can keep it between us if that's what you want." A small wave of gratitude welled up in him, mixed with the knowledge that he was taking a step far beyond the secrecy he had been clinging to. "Thank you," he whispered. I don't want rumors at work or anything like that." "Of course," Melody said firmly. "Office gossip isn't what I'm about. I promise I'll keep this private. But if you ever need advice on brands, sizing, or how to style an outfit, let me know. I might not know all the specifics of your size range, but we can figure it out together. And if you need moral support, I'm all ears." Damon's vision blurred slightly as emotion threatened to well up. He rarely felt so seen and accepted in a face-to-face conversation. "Thanks," he managed to say once more, clearing his throat to steady his voice. I admit, it's been nerve-wracking. I'm still figuring it out, trying to find comfortable heels without spending a fortune. And it's tough, especially with bigger sizes. Melody nodded. Torrid's a decent place to start, though it can be hit or miss. Also, sometimes it helps to just go to a store in person if you can muster the courage. But I get it, that can be nerve-wracking too. A wry smile flickered on Damon's face. That's an understatement. They chatted for a little while longer, keeping their voices low, discussing the subtle details of sizing, materials, and how to break in shoes without too much pain. Melody recommended foot cushions and insoles for extra support. She even mentioned practicing on carpet or with thick socks until the shoes were a bit more pliable. When they finally parted ways to return to work, Damon felt as though he was walking on lighter feet. He was still apprehensive about what might happen if more people found out, but having one ally, a real person he could turn to, made a world of difference. Another week passed, and Damon's new navy kitten heels arrived. This time he wore them in the living room while Owen was asleep one night, carefully stepping around to minimize noise. The shoes were sleek and subtle, hugging his feet nicely. He thought about the tips from Melody. Maybe some gel insoles would help on the balls of his feet. After about an hour of quiet practice, he put the shoes away in his room, stashing them next to the black pumps. He was about to shut the closet door when he heard the sound of footsteps in the hallway. He froze. "Damon?" called Owen's sleepy voice. "You awake?" Panic shot through Damon as he quickly closed the closet. Yeah, I'm up," he said, trying to sound casual. He stepped into the hallway, wearing just his pajama pants and a t-shirt. Owen rubbed his eyes. "Sorry, I heard some noise. Thought maybe you had the TV on." Damon's mind raced. Had the faint click of heels woken Owen? He tried to appear calm. "I might have been moving around. Sorry if I was too loud. Couldn't sleep." Owen nodded, yawning. "No worries, I'll probably crash again." He turned to head back toward his room, then paused. "By the way, I might head out tomorrow evening with some friends. You got any plans?" Damon shook his head. "Not really. Probably just staying in." He watched Owen shuffle back into his room, shutting the door behind him. Slowly, Damon released a breath. That had been too close. If Owen had seen him, it would have forced a conversation he wasn't ready to have. Melody texted him a few days later. "Quick question. Do you want to meet at the mall this weekend? We can do a little shopping and just see what's out there. If that's too intimidating, let me know." Damon stared at the text, a smile tugging at his lips. Shopping with someone who was fully aware of his interest in women's shoes and clothing? It felt like both a dream and a nightmare, but he realized it might be the next logical step. He typed back, "Yes, let's do it. See you Saturday around noon?" "Perfect," she replied. That Saturday, Damon took a rideshare to the mall. He dressed in a casual outfit, jeans, a hoodie, sneakers, trying to blend in. When he found Melody near the fountain in the main atrium, she greeted him with a warm grin. "Hey, ready to explore?" she asked, gesturing toward the corridor that branched off toward countless stores. He swallowed hard. "As ready as I can be." They started off in a general clothing store. Melody showed him a couple of items that could suit a range of styles. She picked up a simple blouse in a larger size, holding it against him to gauge the fit. He felt his face heat up, but no one seemed to notice or care. The store was busy enough that they were just two more shoppers amidst the crowd. "If you like it, we can hit the dressing rooms," Melody said gently. He nodded, deciding to try. They gathered a few items, a pair of black leggings, a loose-fitting cardigan, and a pair of jeans cut for a taller frame. "One step at a time," Damon murmured, more to himself than anyone else. In the dressing room, with Melody waiting just outside, he took a deep breath. He tried on the blouse. It felt a little snug around the shoulders, but the fabric was softer than any button-down he owned. Then the leggings. They stretched enough that he could get them on, though it was a bit of a dance. He studied himself in the mirror. It was a peculiar sensation, part comfort, part unfamiliar territory. Still, he felt that spark of excitement again. "How's it going in there?" Melody asked softly. "It's interesting," he replied, chuckling nervously. "Different than what I'm used to, but not bad." They moved to another store, one known for carrying larger shoe sizes. Melody beckoned him to a quieter corner where the bigger sizes were sometimes stashed. Indeed, they found a row that extended up to size 13. Many were out-of-season styles, or more colorful than Damon preferred, but it was still intriguing to see that these existed in a mainstream store. He gently picked up a pair of nude pumps with a low heel, turning them in his hand. "These could be nice," he murmured, "but I already have my black pair and a navy pair. Plus, I'm on a budget." Melody gave him a gentle nudge. "We can keep them in mind if you decide to expand your collection." As they left the store, Damon clutched a small shopping bag containing a blouse he decided to buy. On sale, too. He could sense the adrenaline in his chest, a mixture of nervousness and empowerment. They sat down at a small cafe in the mall for a breather. "You look like your mind's spinning," Melody observed. He laughed quietly. "It is. I can't believe I'm doing this. A few months ago, I wouldn't have dared even thinking about it." Melody nodded, sipping her iced coffee. "Well, you're allowed to explore. Nobody gets to tell you otherwise." Damon felt the tension in his shoulders loosening. "Thanks," he said. "Really, I wouldn't have tried this if not for your support." A light flush rose to Melody's cheeks. "Hey, I'm just glad you're letting me be part of the journey." In the weeks that followed, Damon found himself balancing life more confidently. He established a better hiding spot for his shoes and newly bought clothes, investing in a couple of storage boxes that fit under his bed. Owen's schedule remained busy, meaning Damon had enough nights alone to practice wearing his outfits and strolling around in the heels without constant fear. He also continued to update the online forum, sharing the small milestones of his progress. The community cheered him on with every new post, offering practical tips about caring for his shoes, recommended brands, and more. In one lively thread, users shared photos of their own beginner-friendly heels, all sporting stable block or kitten styles. Damon felt part of something that extended beyond his immediate circle. Eventually, the question of what to do next began to gnaw at him. He had the shoes, the skirt, the blouse, and some extra pieces. He felt good about how they fit and how he could walk in them. But was he content to keep them behind closed doors forever? One evening, after Owen left for an overnight trip, Damon found himself alone in the apartment. He lit a few soft lamps in the living room, putting on a gentle background playlist. He changed into the black skirt, the new blouse, and his original black block heels. The combination felt balanced and polished in a subtle way. He looked at himself in the hallway mirror, noticing that he stood straighter, exuding a small measure of poise he had never quite seen in himself before. In the reflection, he caught his own eyes, noticing a spark of emotion that was neither fear nor shame, but something more hopeful. He took a few steps, let his hips move slightly, and felt the way the shoes clicked softly on the hardwood. Each step resonated like a small affirmation that he belonged in them. He drifted to the window, peering out at the city lights. Cars rushed by, and a few people strolled on the sidewalks below. None of them had any idea what he was doing up here in this apartment. He turned off the main light, leaving only the soft glow of a small lamp. Then he put on a calm song and let himself move gently to the music, as though swaying at a slow dance. He didn't think of it as performing. It was more that he allowed himself to be present with the gentle clack of his heels, the swish of the skirt, and the subtle way the blouse brushed against his skin. It felt quietly empowering. Eventually, he came to a stop, heart pumping in a steady rhythm. There was no applause, no audience, but the contentment in his chest was enough. "This is real," he whispered into the stillness, "and it's okay." Not long after, he slipped back into his regular clothes, stashed everything safely away, and curled up on the couch to watch a random TV show. A wave of peace lulled him as the night deepened. Monday morning arrived, and with it came the usual work routine. Damon poured himself coffee at the office kitchenette, mind still somewhat adrift in memories of the weekend. Melody breezed in, wearing a light blazer over a dress. She smiled at him. He returned the smile with genuine warmth. She poured her own coffee and leaned against the counter. "How are the new items working out?" she asked quietly. He glanced around to make sure no one was within earshot. "Better than I ever expected," he admitted. "The shoes are great, and the clothes, they fit well." She nodded. "I'm glad. Just keep me posted if you need anything else." When Melody left the kitchenette, Damon felt a renewed sense of appreciation. His life hadn't changed dramatically on the outside. He still went to work, paid bills, and spent weekends catching up on chores. But something internal felt lighter, more at ease. He wondered if that sense of calm would last, or if he would eventually yearn for something more, maybe wearing these clothes beyond the apartment walls, or finding a group in real life where he could share these interests openly. For now, it was enough. He had a pair of heels that fit perfectly, a few outfits that made him smile when he caught his reflection, and the genuine support of a friend who believed in him. That block heel was more than just a piece of footwear. It symbolized a small step in a new direction, something stable, not extreme, and just within his reach. He took his coffee back to his desk, turned on his computer, and reminded himself that each day could hold a quiet victory if he let it. His online forum tab beckoned him. Maybe later he would post an update on how well the shoes were working out. For now, though, he simply savored the knowledge that somewhere in his closet at home, a pair of black pumps and a new navy kitten heel waited for him. And that, in its own calm, understated way, was a triumph that made his ordinary Monday morning feel just a bit brighter.
Did you like the story? Hit that like button and tell me what you thought in the comments. Do you want to hear more stories? Subscribe and hit the bell. For exclusive content and early access, check out our Patreon. You can find the link in the description, or you can watch any of the videos shown on my right. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.